Hello everyone. A couple years ago I made a video about the worst Aegis habits, and I thought, why not make an updated version with the habits I see nowadays? Granted, some habits are definitely still around, so you can expect some returning ones, but there will be new blood for sure. If you want to see the old video, there's a link in the corner and in the description, but watch this video first. The Aegis Ditto has become one of my favorite matchups to play because it's fun to sniff out bad habits and have people explode over them. Fun for me, of course. I don't think my opponents have any fun. I have yapped plenty about Blazing End in the past, but majority of the issues still persist. Blazing End in neutral, Blazing End at a hit stun, Blazing End off the ledge, and throwing Blazing End onto the ledge while recovering. All options that are fine in moderation or as mix-ups, but not every single time. An experienced player will delete your stock over these. My recommendation is to jump over it or roll through it when you think it's coming. Give zero respect to this move. On the topic of Pyra, this habit is going to be a bit more difficult to break down. I don't know what to call this, truth to be told. I think it's a deeper issue that has to do with how people play Pyra in neutral. How she is played versus how she is supposed to be played. We all know that people will desperately swing with Pyra to seal out stock sometimes, right? Thing is, Pyra has more startup and end life to all of her moves compared to Mythra. She plays a slower, more defensive game because of this fact. She's not suited to rushdown and wants the opponent to act first. Because of this, when you swing, you need to be deliberate. There needs to be intentionality behind what you do. You need to plan out your moves and think ahead. A good player isn't just gonna run in or jump into your attacks, they'll wait for you to strike first. And when you swing and miss, people can very easily punish you, and I mean very easily. So when the opponent is playing Pyra, wait for them to do something first, then punish. Alternatively, rush them down and stuff out Pyra's attacks using her frame data against her. Both work well. As the one playing Pyra, just slow down, will you? Playing her requires a ton of patience, not to mention discipline. Pyra wants to play a bait and punish style where you can capitalize on your opponent's mistakes, forcing them to pick options first through pressure and zoning. Yes, I said zoning. But it's hitbox based and not projectile based. Pyra takes a lot of space with her big moves, shutting down areas and stuffing out various angles of approach. She excels when the opponent comes to her, like when you have the lead or have the opponent in disadvantage. However, she struggles when the roles are reversed. Her slower speed makes approaching easy to react to. Pay attention to how I didn't say predictable, but reactable. You can still feint, do empty hops and all of that stuff to make your attacks far less predictable for the opponent to read. Anyway, I went on a bit of a TED talk there. I have plans to talk about this in far more detail later, but that's the gist of it. Pyra is just a bit more complicated than on the surface. A tiny bit. Next up is another neutral based habit, but for Mythra this time. Honestly, these two habits sort of compound each other. So remember how I said Pyra loves when the opponent comes to her? Well, an issue I have is that most people play Pyra exclusively as aggressive. They only hold forward and rush you down. And why wouldn't they? She is advertised as a rushdown character after all. When you play Mythra purely aggressive, she becomes extremely easy for the opponent to deal with. And once again, there's really nothing to be afraid of. What's an aggressive Mythra gonna do? Dash attack you? Jump in with neutral air? Dash grab? All people gotta do is shield or move out of the way when she approaches, and that's it. You gotta be able to switch playstyles on the fly if you want to succeed. But also, if you're gonna approach, you have to make things ambiguous. Mythra is really fast, and you can bait options just by using movement. You don't have to commit to anything whatsoever. Again, another topic that deserves its own video, but I hope I'm getting the point across. Slow down and think about what you're doing. Switch things up if you're not having success. Okay, last thing on today's agenda. When you're playing a character like Aegis, whose recovery is really bad, why are people so addicted to pressing buttons at a hit stun and landing with aerials? This is one of those general habits that everyone has, but again, it's devastating as Aegis. Listen, it's fine to do it if the opponent won't be able to punish you. People do that all the time. But when you're clearly in the opponent's range and you still press a button, that's gotta stop. Circling back to Pyra and how missing attacks will get you punished, that still applies here. Even if you're not aiming to hit anyone with an aerial, that's still an attack you threw out. And actions have consequences, contrary to popular belief. Sometimes it's just autopilot and there wasn't actually much thought behind what you did, but that's also exactly the point. And I think if anything, the message of this video is to just think about what you're doing and why you're doing them. Slow down and reassess the situation. Is what you're doing really what's needed right now? Is it working? If yes, keep at it. If no, what can you do differently? Everything I've talked about today is fine in moderation, but when overdone, it really hurts your performance and not to mention your growth as a player. What really stings is when I punish someone really hard for a bad habit, and nothing changes. If someone gets absolutely vaporized for a bad habit, that's supposed to be a wake-up call. A call out, is what the community says. Like, oh, my stock got deleted for that? I must be doing that a lot. Or, I didn't think I would die for something like that. But people keep trucking along as if nothing happened, and I'm like, why aren't you adapting? Why is nothing changing? And yes, I know the saying, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. It's what separates the good players from the bad. But playing against someone that never adapts is seriously boring. A big part of the fun is your opponent reacting and adapting to what you're doing, and you doing the same in return. It's a symbiotic relationship where both parties benefit from interacting with each other. A little bit of give and take. I know this video has been a bit all over the place. If you learned anything at all or got something to take home with you, that's all that matters. I just want Aegis mains as a collective to improve. To show everyone that Aegis has what it takes and that we're actually good at the game. Anyway, that's it for today. I have a couple of other videos here that might interest you if you liked what you saw. Thanks for watching, and take care.